The Halo trilogy is one of the most revered trilogies of all time, and its impact expands past video games. It spawned a franchise with a virtual library of books, podcasts, YouTube communities, limited series, and even a TV show. This is evident that the Halo series contains a world and a story that fans can't get enough of. So let's go back and revisit the trilogy. In this video, I'm going to analyze the original Halo games, one game at a time, and the narrative it spins throughout. I'm interested in all the parts that go into a game's story and how the player experiences it, from the direct script to the world building to the combat. We'll look at how Combat Evolved sets the foundation, how Halo 2 builds upon it, and finally how Halo 3 wraps up the story. With that, Spartans, let's dive into Halo Combat Evolved. Halo Combat Evolved begins with a view of the Halo ring. The Pillar of Autumn approaches, surrounded by a sea of stars. Although the scene is picturesque, the situation is anything but peaceful.
Cortana, all I need to know is, did we lose them?
I think we both know the answer to that.
We made a blind jump. How did they...
Get here first? The Covenant ships have always been faster. As for tracking us all the way from Reach, at light speed my maneuvering options were limited.
We were running dark, yes?
Until we decelerated, no one could have missed the hole we tore in subspace. They were waiting for us on the far side of the planet.
So, where do we stand?
Our fighters are mopping up the last of their recon picket now, nothing serious. But I've isolated approach signatures for multiple CCS-class battle groups, making 3 capital ships per group. And in about 90 seconds, they'll be all over us.
This scene is great at communicating a lot to the player in a short amount of time. A large part of that is Key's tone. He sounds exhausted and weathered, especially when talking about the Covenant. From this alone, you can suspect that this war with the Covenant has not been easy. In addition, he's befuddled by the Covenant's ability to track them. The Covenant's technological superiority is established. And lastly, their cruiser, the Pillar of Autumn, is being chased by the Covenant. The Pillar of Autumn appears to be alone without any reinforcements. The scene of a lone cruiser being hounded by the Covenant doesn't bode well for how the war is going. It's clear that humanity is on the back foot. A lot of information is delivered, but dialogue comes across as natural. It doesn't feel like Keyes is giving exposition to the player. As a result, the player is more immersed. The humans know that an attack on the Pillar of Autumn is imminent, so Keyes readies the ship for battle.
Once again, it is our job to finish what the Fly Boys started. We are leaving this ship platoon and engaging the Covenant on solid ground. When we meet the enemy, we will rip their skulls from their spines and toss them away laughing. Am I right, Marines?
Sir, yes, sir!
Damn right I am. Now move it out! Double time!
What I love about Johnson's speech is that, when juxtaposed with Keyes' prior scene, it encapsulates the mood of the entire series. Keyes' scene establishes this somber tone, with humanity scraping for survival against a superior enemy. Johnson's speech showcases the stubbornness and grit of humanity, which is displayed throughout the series. The Covenant may wipe out humanity to the last man, but that last man's going to be shooting away with his rifle, not giving his enemy an inch of ground if he can help it. This scene pumps the player up, in perfect time for them to take the shoes of Master Chief. When Chief awakes from his cryo chamber, a few techs walk him through the basic movement controls. I love when tutorials are built into the game world like this. As soon as Chief gets his bearings, the Covenant attack.
Intruders in the IO2! Please, Johnny!
Sam! Sam! Come on, we've got to get the hell out of here!
Even though I just met these techs, I really did feel bad for them when they died. The reason, I think, is because this scene contrasts greatly with Johnson's speech. After his speech, you feel pumped up and ready to take on the Covenant. This scene brings back the harsh reality of the war. The techs didn't stand a chance. The first begs for mercy before being cut down ruthlessly. The second dies abruptly from an explosion, not even knowing what hit him. The Chief needs to meet Captain Keyes ASAP. Without weapons, though, he is entirely defenseless against the Covenant. As the player, you have to weave through the corridors of the ship, fleeing from the invading Covenant. This section is great at using gameplay to communicate the same message as before. As Chief, you're embodying a role similar to humanity as a whole. You're on the back foot, fleeing against an enemy with superior power. you get to experience the fear of the Covenant firsthand. Chief reaches Captain Keyes, who underlines the situation again. Protocol is clear. Cortana the AI cannot be captured by the enemy. Captain Keyes gives Chief Cortana for safekeeping. His primary objective is to get her off the ship and keep her safe from the enemy. And with that, Chief is finally armed. Now he has the power to take on the Covenant. As a player now, you feel confident in your objective and your ability to fight this threat. So again, this is an oscillation towards Johnson's triumphalism and can-do attitude. The oscillation between the despair and triumph is really what makes the Pillar of Autumn such a great introduction mission. The low points of despair are contrasted by the high points of confidence and vice versa. It gives the player a potent mix of these emotions as they step off the ship and into the escape pod. The mission ends on a high note then, with another triumph. We have escaped. The game's second mission, Halo, begins on another low point, undercutting the joy from the escape. The ship crash lands on the ring, killing all of the Marines. The only survivor is Master Chief. Your immediate surroundings are the dark, claustrophobic walls of the escape pod. When Chief exits the pod, the player is greeted by the astonishing vista of Halo, which, even to this day, is something I could stare at all day. The reason comes down to the art design. The Earth-like pine trees, combined with the cool night sky and looming mountains, are contrasted with the unearthly halo ring looping into the sky. The timberland nature instills a sense of wanderlust, and you want to set out and explore this strange land. Contrast once again works to Halo's benefit. The first mission took place in a claustrophobic ship, with the player often crawling through vents. So when you're given the wide-open Halo ring to explore, the expansiveness is enhanced. This wanderlust is quickly undercut by the appearance of Covenant ships, scouring the ground for survivors. Seeing all those birds in the sky gives you a primal feeling of being hunted and wanting to get away. Chief proceeds, fighting through Covenant troops. When he crests the hill, he finds survivors engaged in a battle with the Covenant. Chief helps clear out the enemies, but reinforcements arrive. Chief and the Marines fight off waves of enemies. One detail I want to point out is that the Covenant arrive onto the battlefield via dropships. Most games, in contrast, just spawn the enemies off screen and have them enter the battlefield. The Covenant entering the battlefield in such an organic way is a small detail, but I think it greatly increases immersion. It makes the Covenant feel more grounded as an enemy faction and more real. After the Marines are saved, Chief sets about finding the other surviving Marines. There are 3 packs of Marines you have to save before the mission concludes. Chief is free to save the Marines in whichever order he chooses. The Halo ring is this wild open wilderness, and the openness of the mission structure reflects that well. While this mission establishes the setting well, I think this mission's greatest contribution to the story is the dynamic nature of the Marines during gameplay, and how it fosters care in the player. The best way to illustrate this is through a story, which happened during this playthrough. After saving the first batch of Marines, Cortana sends a dropship to pick them up. I expected all of the Marines to board the ship and exfil the area, and a few did. However, a couple stayed behind. They didn't just idly loiter though. They ran to the Warthog I had parked earlier and boarded up, one manning the turret on the back. Instead of escaping, they decided to help me rescue the other Marines and strike back at the Covenant. This imbued them with a sense of personality. These weren't just any Marines, these were the brave Marines. I took the wheel and I felt an immediate attachment to these guys, as they barked out, "Let's go," and "Keep it up."
Pick them up and lay them down, Marines! Let's go!
These were my ride and die boys. Together we are going to show the Covenant a piece of our minds. We drive out to the second Marine site. Along the way, the Marines are taking out enemies for me. Things are going swimmingly. Then a grunt with a plasma grenade ruins it all.
4 of them! Let's do it! Got him!
My Marines, my comrades, dead. One instantly from the grenade blast, the other from plunging down the cliff, screaming pitifully all the way down. My Marines were killed by the Covenant. I felt an immediate ire for the enemy. I wanted to take them all down for what they did to my Marine buddies. This whole little story took place in about 2 minutes. It fostered in me a care for the UNSC and an antipathy for the Covenant. It made me care about the overall conflict by making me care about the individual soldiers in the engagement. And this first-hand experience worked far better than any cutscene or exposition could have. The true beauty of this encounter is that it was organic. This wasn't a fully scripted event. That Covenant grunt didn't have to throw the grenade. If I hadn't parked the Warthog near the first site, then the Marines likely wouldn't have boarded. The organicness of this experience is a special touch. The dynamism of the gameplay, I think, is where the true magic of Combat Evolved's story lies. There's the direct narrative, but I think all these micro stories you form along the way and the endearment you build with the Marines provide a lot of the caring in the story. Once the Marines are saved, Chief exfils. The Covenant have captured the surviving command crew. It's time to save Captain Keyes. Master Chief and the Marines begin their mission to rescue the captain. At last, the humans aren't on the back foot reacting to the Covenant. This time we're on the offensive. Nonetheless, there's a foreboding atmosphere to the first part of this level. The nighttime lighting and music are instrumental in giving off this sense of mystery.
Forces detected up ahead. The path up on the left should let us sneak up around them.
It's a reminder that, even though the humans are on the offensive, this story is anything but over. Chief and the other humans take out Covenant on their way to the cruiser. The dynamic nature of the AI doesn't just apply to your allies. The sandbox of the game can result in enemies having unexpected and hilarious moments. On one hand, moments like this can somewhat diffuse the tension and threat of the Covenant. On the other hand, I think these moments humanize the Covenant troops and give them a sense of personality. These aren't just bots you're fighting, they are an opposing faction, composed of beings with their own sentience. The personality it gives the Covenant then also grounds them. Speaking to the enemy AI, there's a lot to be said about the Covenant's design and combat. The Covenant are very reactive to the player's actions, and there is a clear hierarchy in their ranks. The elites lead the combat units. If you take them down, the grunts often lose their courage and flee from the chief. The elites and grunts both have a survival instinct. If you throw a grenade their way, they'll try to dive out of the way. The same goes for if you try to run them over with a Warthog. There are a lot more examples I could use, but I think I made my point. The Covenant are a very dynamic enemy to fight, and they really feel like they're strategizing when you fight them. This immerses the player too. If the enemy you're fighting feels realistic in combat, it helps you buy into their threat when it comes to this story. When Chief and the Marines reach the grav lift, they have to fight off waves and waves of enemies before they can board. Aside from being a combat challenge, I think this also illustrates the sheer manpower that the Covenant have at their disposal. When you contrast their forces against your ragtag group of Marines, it reinforces the narrative of humans being the underdogs in the overall fight. Chief and the Marines battle through the Covenant cruiser. As we travel through the ship, we get a good look at the Covenant's architecture and design. This further characterizes them. The architecture is very advanced, yet very alien. The roundness of the hallways sticks out in particular. This isn't the type of structure that humans would ever design for a ship. That also goes for the various carvings and inscriptions on the walls. Halo Combat Evolved uses architecture as environmental storytelling to great effect, which we'll see later. The Chief manages to reach Captain Keyes.
Coming here was reckless. You two know better than this. Thanks. Marines, lock and load your weapons. Let's be ready to move.
Yes, sir.
I think Captain Keyes' reaction to the rescue is endearing, and it tells us more about his character. He's a guy that puts the mission above everything, including his own life. Yet he's still human after all, and appreciates his life being saved. With the control room as their next objective, Chief escorts Keyes up the ship. He can die during the segment, which can be very annoying, but it also casts Chief in the protector role through gameplay. They reach the ship and make their escape. This cutscene showcases the UNSC's can-do, never-say-die attitude. It pumps up the player, and gives you the impression that, no matter what the Covenant throw at us, we can succeed with enough grit.
Give me a minute to interface with the ship's controls.
No need. I'll take this bird out myself.
Captain! Hunter!
Hang on.
Nice one, sir.
Time for a little payback.
With that, the race to the control room begins. The silent cartographer starts with Master Chief and some Marines dropping onto an island. Somewhere under the island, the Covenant believe there is a silent cartographer that will lead to Halo's control center. The mission: get to the cartographer first. You and the Marines storm the beach. fighting a horde of Covenant as you advance onto the island. This is one of the most iconic moments of the game, and it's easy to see why. With the music swelling, and the Marines at your side, it's easy to get swept up in the momentum and grandioseness of the moment. This part reinforces your camaraderie with the Marines, and humanity in general. Once the beach is taken, a Warthog is dropped off for Chief to use. I want to highlight the level presentation here. It would have been easy to just spawn a Warthog, or have it waiting when Chief got to the top. However, the developers put in the extra work to have a ship fly in and airdrop the Warthog in a natural, true-to-world way. These extra details add to the immersion and feeling of authenticity. Chief and the Marines fight into the Forerunner facility, but the Covenant lock the doors behind them. Chief needs to find another way in or unlock the door. They communicate this to Keyes, who is on a mission to secure a weapons cache. This is set up for later. The level opens up as Chief is left to figure out how to reach the silent cartographer. Generally, it seems the levels where the Halo ring is the focus. Like this in the second level, the level design is more open. I think the open-ended level design helps sell the Halo ring as a frontier better than constricted level design would. Chief manages to get the door open, so he returns and enters the Forerunner facility. Architecture as a means of environmental storytelling is once again used to great effect with the Forerunners. This place is vast, as Chief establishes when he kicks a rock off into the abyss. It's far grander in size than anything we've seen built by humans or the Covenant. Even the Covenant ship, which felt pretty big, feels dwarfed by this Forerunner installation. Another thing to note is the design of the corridors and rooms Chief travels down. The inscriptions on the walls and the blinking blue lights and machinery look too advanced for humanity. Yet the architecture, with its flat, gray walls and boxy design, looks very different from the Covenant's architecture, which uses a lot of curves. So the Forerunner architecture looks more advanced, yet more familiar. Chief and Cortana find the map, and they uncover the control room's location. Yet they can't get in contact with Captain Keyes to relay the information. This is more build-up for later. Still, they can't afford to delay. Chief and Cortana head out of the facility, fighting Covenant on the way. Cortana has a clever solution to reach the control room. Halo has deep tunnels, so they can travel through them and hit the Covenant from below. Chief gets off the ship and battles through Covenant troops to reach the control room. There's an abrupt change in climate. While we've been accustomed to summertime weather, this region of the ring is wintry. Cortana comments on the weather.
Interesting. The weather patterns here seem unique but not artificial. I wonder if the ring's environment systems are malfunctioning, or if the designers wanted the installation to have inclement weather.
This is an interesting observation. Why would somebody want the ring to have inclement weather? It builds even more intrigue about this mysterious ring planet. The level opens up much like the last. Besides selling Halo Ring as a frontier, this also widens the player's tactical options, which in turn also builds the story. Let me explain what I mean by another example. When I came out into this open field, I noticed a group of Marines shooting at the Covenant next to a Warthog, so I headed over to them. There were a lot of vehicles in this area, including a Covenant Wraith, which is essentially the Covenant's version of a tank. I figured the best strategy would be to get into the Warthog. The Marines would get into the vehicle, with one manning the back turret. Then I could drive while the Marines shot at the enemy. However, before I could get into the Warthog, the Marines died. Without them, I would have no means of offense in the Warthog. I would be an easy target for the Covenant. So I changed my tactics, opting instead to hijack a Ghost, which has better mobility for a single rider and the ability to shoot. What's really cool about this is that I organically incorporated the Marines into my gameplay tactics. Gameplay pushed me into the headspace of Master Chief. I was actively thinking about my allies and having to change my tactics based on their own actions. Again, this dynamic gameplay builds an organic connection between the player, the character you're inhabiting, and his allies. It's really effective. As Chief fights towards the control room, he goes through more Forerunner architecture. Another detail I want to point out is the massive elevators. When you ride up them, you really get a feel for the sheer scale of the Forerunner architecture. Along the way, Chief fights a lot of Covenant. Another cool detail about the Covenant is their use of color to signify rank. The Elite's rank can be determined by their color, with blue being the lowest rank and gold being the general's. What's cool is that this is expressed through gameplay by the Elite's behavior. The player can intuit their rank without having to look this up on a lore wiki. It adds to the immersion that the Covenant are a real army with a dedicated hierarchy. Chief reaches the control center, and the place is vast. Scale is again used to great effect. Cortana plugs into the system, but she finds disturbing information.
You can't imagine the wealth of information. The knowledge, so much, so fast. It's glorious.
So, what sort of weapon is it?
What are you talking about?
Let's stay focused. Halo, how do we use it against the Covenant?
This ring isn't a cudgel, you barbarian. It's something else. Something much more important. The Covenant were right. This ring, it's Forerunner. Give me a second to access. Yes, the Forerunner built this place, what they called a fortress world, in order to... Wait. No, that can't be. Oh, those Covenant fools. They must have known. There must have been signs.
Slow down. You're losing me.
The Covenant found something. Buried in this ring. Something horrible. And now, they're afraid.
Something buried? Where?
The captain. We've got to stop the captain.
Chief has to reach Keys before it's too late. 343 Guilty Spark is, in a lot of ways, the peak of Halo Combat Evolved storytelling. It delivers the biggest twist in the game, and it does so masterfully through the use of level design, enemy AI, and traditional storytelling techniques. The mission starts with the Covenant running away from something. Up until now, the Covenant has been an aggressive enemy, constantly pushing on humanity. Seeing them run away is a disturbing sight. What could make them flee like that? Chief trudges through a dark, misty swamp. Visibility is poor. When he reaches the facility, the Covenant act differently. The Grunts don't care about Master Chief. They ignore him entirely, instead fleeing whatever lay inside. Their fears expressed even through gameplay. Chief descends into the facility. There's no music. Everything is quiet. It makes the environment feel dead, so much that it even pervades the air. He runs into more Covenant, but they're all clustered in a tight enclosure. It looks like they're hiding. The Covenant don't usually cluster like this. Chief encounters a Marine. The Marine isn't relieved at the Chief's presence. Instead, he's terrified. He shoots at you. He doesn't calm down either. There's no reassuring him.
Don't touch me, you freaks! I won't be like you, I'll die first! Find your own hiding place, the monsters are everywhere! Play dead! That's what I did. Play dead. These are the live ones. Oh god, I can still hear them. Monsters!
Chief continues on to try to find Keys and Johnson. Things are looking worse and worse. He continues, coming across assault rifles on the floor. He enters a walkway, filled with blood. There's a dead Marine. He opens a doorway. A Marine falls into his arms. Chief catches him, and holds him protectively as he searches for enemies. Chief doesn't get a whole lot of characterization in this game, but his body language here says everything. He's the protector, the big brother of the Marines. Of humanity, really. His care shines through in moments like these. He finds a helmet with footage. He plays it back and discovers the horrors that transpired.
Look at it! Something scrambled the insides.
What's that? Plasma scoring?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there was an accident, you know, friendly fire or something?
What do we have, Sergeant?
Looks like a Covenant patrol. Badass elite units. All KIA.
Real pretty. Friend of yours?
Nah, we just met.
Right, well, let's get this door open.
I'll try, sir. But it looks like these Covenant worked pretty hard to lock it down.
Just do it, son.
Yes, sir. Got a bad feeling about this.
Boy, you always got a bad feeling about something.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
What's going on, soldier?
We've got contact. Lots of them. But they're not Covenant. They're just staring through us. What the... Oh, no!
Corporal! Do you copy? Over! Mendoza, get your ass back up to second squad's position and find out what the hell is going on.
But...
I don't have time for your lip, soldier. I gave you an order.
Sarge! Listen! What is that?
Where's that coming from,
Everywhere.
Mendoza?
I don't... There! Mira!
Hold still! Hold still! Let him have it! Ah! Sergeant, we're surrounded. God damn it, Jenkins! Fire your weapon!
There are too many,
Don't
Sarge!
even think about it, Marine.
Oh, this is local!
Back here, Marine. That's an order.
Jenkins!
As soon as the footage concludes, the Flood bear down on Master Chief. He has to fight against this new enemy. Near the helmet, there are splatters of blood which cover the floor. There are assault rifles and pistols scattered about. It's where Keyes and Johnson encountered the Flood, the remnants of their battle. There aren't any bodies here. The Marines either escaped or were taken. Based on the video, the prospects don't look good. The build-up and reveal of the Flood is just masterful. As I've tried to illustrate, the build-up combines environmental storytelling, sound design, and AI design, steadily increasing the suspension and dread until the fateful helmet cam footage. The helmet cam footage is the perfect reveal for the Flood. The poor quality, plus the Marines' limited perspective, really sells the horror of this new enemy. This build-up has been happening since Keyes first split from Chief to get the supposed weapons cache, and the payoff here is worth it. Chief has to escape from this new enemy. Along the way, there are more disturbing environmental details. The ceiling drips with a nasty-looking slime. Chief runs into more Covenant. These once imposing enemies beg for their lives as the Flood attack.
No! Please, no!
In a lot of ways, this mission is a microcosm of what makes Halo Combat Evolved storytelling so effective, combining dynamic, changing gameplay powered by believable AI, along with stellar environmental design, punctuated by effective cutscenes and scripted events. Chief fights his way out of the facility. On the way, he runs into surviving Marines, and they make their way through the swamp. He encounters 343 Guilty Spark, the monitor of the installation. His primary goal is to stop the Flood, and that's all Chief needs to hear to join him. 343 transports them to the library. So, I think it's about time where I show my book. For any first-time viewers, I'm a sci-fi writer along with doing YouTube. I have a post-apocalyptic series, The Northfield Saga. The first 2 books are out now, and I'm pretty proud of them. They've received some accolades at book contests if you don't want to take my word for it. The series centers on Mark Northfield, a man who struggles with the gray morality that is inevitable in a post-apocalyptic world. He tries to be the best man he can, but the world refuses to let him. His humble life takes on greater significance than he could have ever imagined, as the target he is meant to kill ends up being the one man that can save the world. It's a character-focused story with lots of world-building and fast-moving action. If that sounds interesting to you, please check out the series. It's the best way you can support me here. I hope to have it reach the bestseller list one day. Buying a book helps me past just the purchase. The more people that buy the book on Amazon, the more Amazon recommends the book to other people, which then introduces other people to my story. It can start a chain reaction. There's a link tree in my video description, which has links to the books and my personal website. Thanks for listening. With that, we'll get back to CE. And now onto the library, one of the most infamous levels in Halo. A lot of people think this is the worst level in the entire series, or at least ranks pretty high up there. The reason why is that the library is a monotonous slog through copy-pasted corridors, with the same Flood enemies constantly hounding you. It's an excessively long level too, and definitely drags. But this video is focused on CE's storytelling. Although I may not love the library or how it plays, I think some of the elements here work storytelling-wise, even if they may harm the overall game. The repeated corridors and the feeling that the level will never end, when paired with the constant Flood attacking you from every direction, really sell the Flood as this endless enemy. You feel exhausted and fatigued when fighting them. You don't feel like you're beating the Flood. At best, you're fending them off temporarily. While the prior level focused on the horror of the Flood, this level showcases their persistent, endless nature. By playing this level, you'll get a natural understanding as the player of how this Flood, if unleashed across the galaxy, would quickly consume everything. While fighting through the Flood, 343 Guilty Spark provides a lot of interesting information about the Flood and the purpose of the installation. His dialogue is essentially just exposition dumps.
You can see how the body's been transformed by the genetic restructuring of the Flood infection. The small creatures carry spores that cause a host to can transfer blood to others. It is insidious and As long as any ghosts remain, the flood is virulent.
A lot of time, exposition dumps are a bad thing in fiction because they come across as unnatural. You can feel the writer behind the curtain, spoon-feeding you the information instead of delivering it in a natural way. I do think that exposition dumps work with 343, however, and the reason is because they do feel natural for his character. He's such an oblivious AI, humming along as he flows through the corridors. It feels like, for him, it's the most natural thing in the world to be dishing out information while Chief is in the middle of battling for his life. Chief and 343 finally reach the destination of their hunt, the Index. Before Chief and Guilty Spark can continue, Cortana interrupts and explains that Chief's new friend may not have the best interests at heart.
That wasn't supposed to happen.
Oh, really?
Cortana.
I've spent the last 12 hours cooped up in here watching you toady about, helping that thing get set to slit our throats.
Hold on now. He's a friend.
Oh, I didn't realize. He's your pal, is he? Your chum? Do you have any idea what that bastard almost made you do?
Yes. Activate Halo's defenses and destroy the flood, which is why we brought the Index to the control center.
You mean this?
A construct in the core? That is absolutely unacceptable.
Sod off!
What impertinence! I shall purge you at once!
You sure that's a good idea?
How dare you? Oh!
Do what? I have the Index. You can just float and sputter.
Enough! The flood is spreading. If we activate Halo's defenses, we can wipe them out.
You have no idea how this ring works, do you? Why the Forerunners built it? Halo doesn't kill Flood. It kills their food. Humans, Covenant, whatever. We're all equally edible. The only way to stop the Flood is to starve them to death. And that's exactly what Halo is designed to do. Wipe the galaxy clean of all sentient life. You don't believe me? Ask him.
Is it true?
More or less. Technically, this installation's pulse has a maximum effective radius of 25,000 light years. But once the others follow suit, this galaxy will be quite devoid of life. Or at least any life with sufficient biomass to sustain the flood. But you already knew that. I mean, how couldn't you?
Left out that little detail, did he?
We have followed outbreak containment procedure to the letter. You were with me each step of the way as we managed this crisis.
Chief, I'm picking up movement.
Why would you hesitate to do what you've already done?
We need to go, right now.
Last time you asked me, if it were my choice, would I do it? Having had considerable time to ponder your query, my answer has not changed. There is no choice. We must activate the ring.
Get us out of here.
If you are unwilling to help, I will simply find another. Still, I must have the Index. Give your construct to me, or I will be forced to take her from you.
That's not going to happen.
So be it. Save his head. Dispose of the rest.
With Guilty Spark turning against Chief, there are now 4 opposing factions on the ring. There are now the humans, the Covenant, the Flood, and now the Monitors. The chaos of these factions clashing is apparent via gameplay as soon as the next level, 2 Betrayals, begins. Chief enters a hallway where he must fight against the Covenant, Flood, and 343 Sentinels, who are now all attacking each other. Chief's ultimate objective is to destroy the ring. No matter the threat that the Flood presents, wiping out humanity is not an acceptable solution. His immediate goal in this mission is to delay 343 and buy time to destroy the ring. He does so by disabling 3 generators. This level is mostly a retread of Attack on the Control Room. Because of that, there isn't a whole lot more to glean story-wise from environmental design. The goal of disabling the generators doesn't provide any new story revelations. However, I do think there are a couple of ways this mission nonetheless build upon the story. First, I do think having the player retread old ground, although a bit stale, does succeed in reinforcing the setting. The player had to travel through this place to reach the control room. Forcing them to travel back does give the impression that it's a physical place. It's sort of like an open world game. You retread similar areas to go from objective to objective, but by seeing the same areas you get a feel for them and form a mental map, and it overall makes everything feel more solid. Second, we traveled through this area pre-flood. Now we see the area post-flood. Our familiarity with this area makes that contrast more apparent, and seeing the Covenant ultimately falling to the flood, despite fighting as best they can, does succeed in foreshadowing what a larger conflict with the flood would look like. With all 3 generators disabled, and the monitors sufficiently delayed, Chief and Cortana head to their next objective. They plan on using the Pillar of Autumn, the ship they arrived in, to destroy Halo. They intend to detonate the ship, but they need the authorization and Captain Key's neural implants to do it. Cortana figures out how to use the teleportation grid that the monitors use. She jumps Chief to Captain Key's location. The move is pretty risky, so they only do this teleportation thing once. Cortana gets a bead on Captain Key's vitals. It turns out the captain is still alive. He's on a Covenant cruiser which has been overtaken by the flood. The Covenant tried to escape, but they didn't make it in time. Chief's mission is simple: get to the captain, save him if you can, but above all else, retrieve the implant. This mission is very similar to 2 Betrayals, in that it is a retread of old ground, except this time it is the Truth and Reconciliation ship instead of the Halo ring. So the same criticisms as well as the same story observations apply here, copy and pasted much like this mission. Again, this mission contrasts the world pre-flood versus post-flood. There are some cool environmental changes. The ship is in ruins, and this contrast sticks out because of how pristine the ship looked earlier. Chief even has to drop down into a cavern, navigating pools of leaking coolant in order to find another way into the ship. In these caverns, chaos reigns. The close quarters combat and the dynamic nature of the Flood and Covenant AI make these some of the most unpredictable engagements in the game. The player is often better off sneaking by his enemies and letting them fight it out. In this way, the gameplay strategy aligns well with Chief's strategy in the story. In this context, it makes the most sense for him to move as quickly as possible, opting for speed instead of engaging enemy troops. Along the way, Keyes tells Chief to leave him and escape.
I gave you an order, soldier. Now pull out!
He's delirious. In pain. We have to find him.
Without knowledge of Chief's plan, his intentions are noble, willing to sacrifice his own life so his soldier lives. When Chief reaches the captain, it's too late. He has been entirely subsumed by the flood infection. Knowing what the captain would want, Chief retrieves the implant and escapes the ship. Chief returns to where this story started, the Pillar of Autumn. Although we've been retreading old ground over the past few levels, and this is another case of that, it does tie a nice narrative bow in the game. We started in the Pillar of Autumn, explored Halo, escaped Halo, and now are back on the ship. Chief needs to overload the ship's engines to trigger an explosion and escape the ship. When they start the detonation sequence, Guilty Spark shows up to spoil the party.
I leave home for a few days and look what happens. This won't take long. There. That should give us enough time to make it to a lifeboat and put some distance between ourselves and Halo before the detonation.
I'm afraid that's out of the question, really.
Oh, hell.
Ridiculous! That you would imbue a warship's AI with such a wealth of knowledge? Weren't you worried it might be captured or destroyed?
He's in my data arrays, a local tap.
You can't imagine how exciting this is! To have a record of all of our lost time! Human history, is it? Fascinating. Oh, how I will enjoy every moment of its categorization! To think that you would destroy this installation as well as this record! I am shocked. Almost too shocked for words.
He stopped the self-destruct sequence.
Why do you continue to fight us, Reclaimer? You cannot win! Give us the construct, and I will endeavor to make your death relatively painless and...
At least I still have control over the comm channels.
Where is he?
I'm detecting taps throughout the ship. Sentinels, most likely. As for the monitor, he's in engineering. He must be trying to take the core offline. Even if I could get the countdown restarted, I don't know what to do.
How much firepower would you need to crack one of the engine's shields?
Not much. A well-placed grenade, perhaps, but why? Okay, I'm coming with you. Chief, Sentinels!
I love the end of the sequence, where Chief is displaying the grenade. Again, while the Chief doesn't get a lot of characterization in this game, as he's mostly a vessel for the player, we get just enough characterization for Chief to be endearing. He is portrayed in this game with a pretty one-track mind, of defeating the Covenant and using weapons to do it. He gets more characterization in later games, but what we get in CE works well in the context of what else the game is trying to accomplish. With Guilty Spark's sabotage, Chief now needs to detonate the ship's reactors himself. He fights the Flood as well as Guilty Spark's monitors. Once the reactors are destroyed, the ship has gone critical. Chief now needs to escape. They arrange a distraction with Foehammer, the reliable pilot who has been picking us up and dropping us off throughout the game. This all culminates in a final Warthog run to the extraction point. Although driving is not the focal point of the gameplay, I think it was a good choice for the conclusion. The speed and momentum of the Warthog, paired with the countdown timer, relays the urgency of the story effectively. You're racing literally to the end. Chief arrives at the extraction point. The countdown timer stops. Mission accomplished. Or so we think. Foehammer arrives, but the Pelican goes down. Our reliable pilot, another casualty of the ring. Cortana finds another way out. Another ship is in inventory. Chief needs to board the Warthog again and race there. The countdown timer resumes exactly where it left off. This succeeds in spiking the player with adrenaline, as it catches them completely unaware, especially if there wasn't much time remaining on that clock when they reach the first extraction point. Chief races and tries to make a big jump. He misses and plummets below. There's another ramp though, so he lands and continues racing. Near the last leg, the way forward is obstructed. He has to leg it the rest of the way, fighting off elites as the timer inches towards 0. He makes it in the nick of time and flies off to escape the ring. This conclusion works very well. Aside from the speed and momentum, the climax plays with your expectations and throws twists in your way. The countdown timer stopping and then continuing, the failed jump, the obstruction at the end. This gives the player oscillations of triumph and despair, all while ratcheting up tension with the countdown timer. There aren't really any high-stakes driving like this earlier in the game, so this takes the player out of their comfort zone. All in all, the gameplay does a great job of communicating the game's narrative tension. Chief watches the Halo ring get destroyed. Although the mission is concluded, he knows the war is far from over. The camera pans from the ship to the galaxy at large. This essentially communicates how, whatever comes next will have greater stakes than just a Halo ring, with ramifications for the entire galaxy. And with that, Halo Combat Evolved is concluded. Halo Combat Evolved is a tightly told story, with great pacing and a twist which upends the player's expectations. This is paired with a likable cast, with Keyes, Johnson, Cortana, and Chief being easy people to root for. Furthermore, Halo Combat Evolved enhances the story with sound environmental storytelling and integrations of greater lore. However, I think the magic of Halo Combat Evolved is how these story elements are meshed perfectly with the dynamic nature of the gameplay and AI. They're crucial for creating interesting stories unique to each player. The believableness of the AI really sells both the human and enemy factions. I don't think we'd care as much about Chief succeeding in his mission if we didn't bond with the Marines and lose them firsthand. I don't think we'd see the Covenant as such an imposing enemy if their intelligence during gameplay wasn't so unique and tactical. I don't think the Flood would be seen as such a great threat if they didn't take the imposing Covenant and force even them to turn tail. Games are unique from other types of media in that a large part of their storytelling can be communicated through gameplay. Player interaction can enhance the world and get the player into the character's shoes by experiencing events firsthand. I think the great story, reinforced with these gameplay elements, is what makes the Halo universe portrayed in this first game resonate with so many fans. The elements combine in such a unique way, and there isn't a game series quite like it. Halo 2 had big shoes to fill. Halo Combat Evolved was a momentous game, which drew players into its world by a sharp plot, standout characters, and a world that felt worth exploring. Halo Combat Evolved laid a perfect foundation for stories to come. Funnily enough, though, the great execution of Halo Combat Evolved is also a drawback. When a game works so well, it can be difficult to build upon it. If a sequel zigs when it was supposed to zag, it can quickly betray the original and send that foundation tumbling down. Halo Combat Evolved concluded with plenty of avenues left to explore. The Covenant are our enemies, but we didn't learn a whole lot about them. We saw the UNSC, the United Nations Space Command, but we didn't see much of humanity as a whole. Halo 2's chief responsibility in the story department is to provide answers to these questions, or at least lead towards them. At the same time, Halo 2 is responsible for building upon the stakes of the original game, upping the ante. If Halo 2 stumbled on either goal, well, then it would have been letting down Halo Combat Evolved's foundation. It's fortunate then, that from a storytelling perspective, Halo 2 is an almost perfect continuation of its predecessor. It fleshes out the world greatly, it ups the stakes, and it makes us care more about its central cast. Halo 2 uses every tool at its disposal, from the script to the environmental and level design, to the gameplay to spin its tail. My name is Kelvin Fisher. I'm a science fiction author, primarily of the Northfield series. Join me in this dive into Halo 2 storytelling, and why the game works so well as a sequel. Halo 2 opens on the Covenant's holy city. We meet the Arbiter, who is set before the Prophets for judgment on the events of Combat Evolved. The Arbiter explains his point of view of what happened on the Halo ring.
By the time I learned the demon's intent, there was nothing I could do.
This is such a brilliant narrative framing to start with for a handful of reasons. First off, the Arbiter recounting the events of Halo Combat Evolved provides a natural summary of the first game for new players, and a refresher for returning players. In addition, though, the Arbiter's narration provides the Covenant's perspective on the events. So, this summary accomplishes dual purposes of recounting the first game while also fleshing out the Covenant. The Covenant are also further fleshed out in a variety of ways through this cutscene. By visuals alone, we get a clear view of the Covenant's hierarchical structure. The Prophets are in charge, while the other Covenant forces are in the stands. One of the brutes laughs when the Arbiter is booed by the crowd. This indicates that the brutes have an animosity towards the Arbiter, or as we'll see, the elites as a whole. Furthermore, the Prophets use very religious language when talking about the ring.
Humans were able to evade your ships, land on the sacred ring, and desecrate it with their filthy footsteps.
Even if you haven't played the first game, you get the sense that the Covenant are religiously motivated. Already through this cutscene, we grasp the Covenant's structure and motivations through uses of imagery and subtle dialogue nods. The Arbiter is ultimately condemned for his failure to stop Master Chief from destroying the ring. The brutes are all too eager to usher the Arbiter away. This is more foreshadowing for later in the game. The perspective changes to our principal hero, Master Chief. He's on Kairos Station, and he's harangued by the armorer for destroying his first suit.
You know how expensive this gear is, son?
Tell that to the Covenant.
Fortunately, he's given a more advanced version. This provides a nice narrative explanation for the slight shift in gameplay mechanics from Halo Combat Evolved to Halo 2. In Halo 2, your health fully recharges, while in Halo 1, you had to use health packs to restore the health beneath your shields. In addition, calibrating the suit is a good excuse to run through the tutorial controls again. Master Chief and Sergeant Johnson head to a reward ceremony, where they're given accolades for their actions. Miranda Keyes, the daughter of Captain Keyes, is given honors for her father posthumously.
Your father's actions were in keeping with the highest traditions of military service. His bravery in the face of impossible odds reflects great credit upon himself and the UNSC. The Navy has lost one of its best.
Captain Keyes died on the Halo ring, being subsumed by the Flood infection. This cutscene alternates between the reward ceremony and the Arbiter's punishment, where he's stripped of his armor in front of a jeering crowd and branded. This contrast serves to accentuate both the hope that the UNSC feels by Master Chief's victory, as well as the shame the Arbiter feels in his defeat.
Drawn quite a crowd. If they came to hear me beg, they will be disappointed. Are you sure?
By emphasizing this shame, the player has a better understanding of the Arbiter. The award ceremony is cut short by Cortana, the helpful and ever-sassy AI who accompanied Chief during his time on the Halo ring. The two work as a close-knit team, with Cortana being his guide, source of information, and sometimes protector. She notifies them that a slip space rupture has been detected. The Covenant are here. Humanity is under attack. The Master Chief is given a simple order: protect Kairos Station.
Yes, sir. I need a weapon.
Right this way.
The Master Chief is ready to get armed and take on his enemy. With that, the gameplay of Halo 2 begins in proper. This first gameplay level of Halo 2 is very reminiscent of Combat Evolved's first mission. In the first game, you're on a human vessel, the Pillar of Autumn, fending off a Covenant attack. Halo 2 opens with the Covenant attacking a human station with very similar looking hallways and constructs. This instills a level with an instant sense of familiarity and a connection with the first game. However, Kairos Station is much grander in scope. Out of the windows you see Earth. As the player, this provides you with a sense of immediacy. You understand that you're not just protecting the ship. By protecting the ship, you're protecting the Earth below. This contrasts with the Pillar of Autumn in the first game, which was floating in an unrecognizable region of space. Now, though, the battle is home. The level design of Kairos Station is more intricate as well. On the Pillar of Autumn, Master Chief fought on a flat plane through straightforward corridors and tunnels. We travel not only through the Kairos Station, but also along the outside of it. One of the highlights is traveling down this massive elevator, seeing the mechanics of the ship move in lumbering motions. Even as the Master Chief, a genetically modified super soldier that stands high above ordinary humans, you feel small amidst this giant construction. This level succeeds in communicating a connection with the first game and using this connection to emphasize the greater scope of the second game. You feel that this is a continuation of the story, but that the stakes are much grander. It's a great example of how familiar environments can be used to create contrast and achieve an effect. The Chief stops a squad of Covenant soldiers in their tracks as they're trying to plant a bomb on the ship.
How much time was left?
You don't want to know.
Chief decides to give back their bomb.
Permission to leave the station.
For what purpose, Master Chief?
To give the Covenant back their bomb.
Permission granted.
This cutscene punctuates everything I've said about upping the stakes. The Covenant are willing to go further to annihilate humanity, but humanity is willing to do whatever it takes to stop them. Chief's offensive with the bomb isn't enough to win the battle, however. The fight continues on Earth's surface, particularly the city of New Mombasa. They pick up a Covenant transmission. The attack on Earth was spearheaded by one of the Covenant prophets, Regret. He's on one of the Covenant carriers and he's calling for backup. Chief's mission is clear: secure the Covenant carrier and capture the Prophet of Regret. At this moment, things are looking better for humanity. Chief delivered a big blow. A prophet appears vulnerable, and Johnson is pumping up the troops for battle.
Hey, humanity, we regret being alien bastards. We regret coming to Earth. And we most definitely regret the Corps just blew up our raggedy-ass fleet. Hoorah!
However, very quickly a wrinkle appears. A scarab, a deadly Covenant weapon, shows up, the likes of which we haven't seen. The scarab starts blasting Earth ships out of the sky. Chief must make the rest of the journey on foot. There's very much an ebb and flow to humanity's battle with the Covenant. Each side deals a devastating blow, one after the other, ratcheting up the intensity. Humanity, emphasized by the likes of Sergeant Johnson, Lord Hood, Miranda Keyes, and the Chief, are ready for this battle and willing to fight it out with a bear-down, determined grin until their very last breath. This highlights their resilience in the face of such a monumental threat, and it makes humanity easy to root for. Chief fights his way through the city, facing down Covenant troops. My favorite part of this handful of levels is that it gives us a tour of what we're protecting. In Halo Combat Evolved, we were fighting for humanity, but we were constrained to the Pillar of Autumn and the Halo Ring, which lacks civilian life. The greater whole of humanity was an abstract. In Halo 2, we get our boots on Earth soil. We get to walk around the Earth that we're protecting. We get a glimpse of how humanity lives outside of the Covenant War. The city of New Mombasa is definitely futuristic, but it's not so advanced that it feels alien. It looks like a natural progression of a city you'd see nowadays, with a handful of architectural innovations and a greater population size. This traversal through the city is enhanced by the presence of the Marines at your side. They're as charming and funny as in the first game, and their short stints of dialogue come across as authentic. In general, they come across as in over their heads, doing their best to keep up with the Master Chief, and resolute in their desire to protect home.
See this look? It's terror! Marine, did I give you permission to hit?
And that's where I think this connection really works. You have the interactions with the Marines, paired with this tour of the city. You have a place you're protecting and a people within to protect. I think this lays a groundwork, which makes the later part of the game when you're off Earth work better because you know what you're protecting at home. When the world is at stake and the Earth is threatened, it's no longer in the abstract. When you think of Earth in Halo 2, you now think of New Mombasa and the humans that live within it. And that frame of reference takes the threat of Earth from the abstract to somewhere more real. During this section, tension is also amplified by the periodic threat of the Scarab. These Earth missions culminate with Chief boarding the Scarab and taking it down. There's a good narrative payoff here, boosted by the aforementioned build-up. It goes down as the most epic feeling segment of gameplay up until this point in the game, as you jump down from the bridge onto the back of the Scarab. The Prophet tries to escape, activating a slip space jump. Miranda Keyes knows a large part of the city will be destroyed by the ensuing jump, and the Covenant will be lost, so she charges forth and enters the breach. An explosion results. This section then ends on a cliffhanger, and we swap to the Arbiter's perspective. This is a tried and true writing technique, leaving a plotline dangling to keep the audience engaged, and it works well here too. The following cutscenes are some of the best in the game. Here, our disgraced elite is bequeathed the title of Arbiter. It's not a title of honor, but a brand of shame. He used to take on dangerous suicide missions at the Prophet's will, until one of these missions eventually kills him. What I think makes this cutscene so engaging is that it does so much work for the game's story and overall lore in such a short period of time. We learn about the duty of the Arbiter and his relation to the Prophets. We get to see, through stellar voice acting, the Arbiter's profound shame. It's clear that his religious beliefs are still intact, and he takes the role of the Arbiter with a humility and a sense of duty. He doesn't even feel worthy of this distinction. Meanwhile, the Prophet's dialogue hints at the Covenant's greater history.
The taming of the Hunters, the Grunt Rebellion. Were it not for the Arbiters, the Covenant would have broken long ago.
Even on my knees, I do not belong in their presence.
The mention of a Grunt Rebellion, for instance, tells us that the Grunts may not be so happy in their current role within the Covenant hierarchy, and that they were likely subject to some level of mistreatment in the past, or even today. The taming of the Hunters indicates that the Hunters were wild animals once, and broken in like horses. These are just some aside lines, but you get the sense that there are greater stories within, and it colors the Prophet's dialogue with a sense of intrigue. You hang on to every word. The Arbiter receives his armor, and he embarks on his first mission. He's to take down a prominent heretic who teaches that the Prophet's words are lies. This mission adds even further depth to the Covenant, showing that they have their own inner strife and turmoils, much like humanity. This all combines to make them far more compelling villains. A cool detail is the Prophets show the heretic on a holo device, but they abruptly stop the heretic recording before he can speak about the Great Journey. As the viewer, you get the sense that the Prophets aren't being fully transparent, but the Arbiter doesn't pick up on it. The Arbiter sets out on his mission along with a squad of Spec Ops elites. Another cutscene plays, which does an excellent job of fleshing out the elites. These are warriors with a great sense of duty and honor for their forebears and children. The Arbiter is told by the Spec Ops commander that his station is far below his men's, and the Arbiter's life doesn't matter to him.
This armor suits you, but it cannot hide that mark. Nothing ever will. You are the Arbiter, the will of the Prophets. But these are my elites. Their lives matter to me, yours does not. That makes two of us.
This reinforces the shame that the Arbiter has in society, and it's a shame he bears fully. They land on a Forerunner station where the heretic is located. We take the shoes of the Arbiter. It's a bold design choice, one which firmly plants the Arbiter as the secondary protagonist in the story. He controls nearly the same as the Master Chief, save for his ability to activate a cloak to conceal his position from enemies. This enhances the Spec Ops role that the Arbiter inhabits, especially during this section of the game. Stealth is an option, where it isn't for the Chief most of the time. As the elites make their way further into the facility, they come across the dreaded flood infestation. The Flood is a devastating, nigh unstoppable parasite which will consume host after host until nothing is left. In fact, the Flood is the reason the Halo rings were created. The rings obliterate all life within their sphere, in effect cutting off the Flood's food supply. The Arbiter chases the heretic until he eventually catches up with him. The heretic is convinced that the Great Journey is the prophets leading them to slaughter. The Arbiter wants to know where the heretic heard these lies. In comes 343 Guilty Spark, a monitor whose goal is to contain the Flood, regardless of the cost. The Covenant view the monitor is a sacred oracle. This gives the Arbiter some pause. If the sacred oracle is saying these things, well, that has a bit more weight to it than some random heretic. Still, that doesn't stop the Arbiter from doing his duty. He is given no more time to ponder. The oracle is snagged by Tartarus, and he tells the Arbiter to come with him. Our perspective switches back to the Master Chief and the humans in their pursuit of regret. They very quickly discover something unsettling. There's another Halo ring, a weapon of great destruction, of the same nature that Chief destroyed in Halo 1. The Prophet of Regret is beelining there. What he wants with the ring is a question the UNSC needs answered. Capturing him is even more important. Chief airdrops onto the ringed planet, storming the surface and fighting through Covenant forces. This section of the game is the most reminiscent of Combat Evolved. Again, we're on a mysterious ringed planet fighting the Covenant, unsure of what our enemy is doing here. The environmental design does a great job of instilling a sense of familiarity, while also feeling distinct from the first Halo. While there are the same grand mountains and the same looping ring in the distance, this ring has a much more jungle feel to it, with temple runes. This is good use of environmental storytelling. As the player, you can put some pieces together. Since this ring is an artificial formation, it's likely built by the same forerunners as Halo Combat Evolved. While the architecture on the first ring was mostly futuristic silver gray metal, the architecture here is largely tanned stones. However, they share the same angular design principles. It showcases the diversity of Forerunner architecture, and by extension a diversity of their culture, while also showing a design consistency. After Chief takes down elite honor guards, Regret reveals his purpose for landing on the Halo ring.
Go back. That's what I thought he said. The Prophet of Regret is planning to activate Halo.
Are you sure?
I shall light this holy ring, release its cleansing flame, and burn a path into the divine beyond.
Pretty much.
It's not a surprise by any measure. He plans on activating the Halo ring to kickstart the Great Journey. The Prophet needs an object, the Index, to activate the Halo ring. Similar to the first Halo, the Index lies within a library. Chief's goal is clear: kill Regret while others go after the Index. While on his way, Cortana sheds more light on the attack on Earth.
I've intercepted a secure transmission from Regret's carrier to something called High Charity. It seems to be a formal apology to the prophets of truth and mercy. Apparently, Regret jumped the gun when he attacked Earth. He's asking the other prophets to forgive his premature arrival, arguing that no human presence was foretold.
Regret attacked with such few forces because he didn't actually expect humans to be inhabiting the planet. This raises more questions, though, than it answers. Why was Regret working off of such bad intel? Questions can wait. Chief reaches Regret and takes him out handily. There's no time for celebration, however. High Charity, the Covenant's megaship, arrives on the scene and attempts to glass Master Chief out of existence. He dives into a great lake, his only refuge. He plunges into the depths. Tentacles emerge from the darkness, and they pull Master Chief down. This is the last we see of the Chief for now, as our perspective returns to the Arbiter. The same narrative technique is employed, ending Chief's section of the story on a cliffhanger. With the Arbiter's defeat of the Heretic successful, he returns to the Holy City. Immediately, though, things are amiss. The Brutes approach the Honor Guard and tear off their armor. The Brutes' savagery is apparent, even to their own members, as a Brute helmet whips another for pawing at his staff. After the Prophet of Regret's apparent death, it isn't clear that the elites can safeguard the Prophets. They've been demoted, with the Brutes taking their place. This is causing political tension, with the elites threatening to leave the Covenant.
Do you know, Arbiter, the elites have threatened to resign, to quit the High Council, because of this exchange of hats?
The Spec Ops commander withdraws, nodding to the Arbiter. This small gesture alludes to the commander having a higher opinion of the Arbiter now after their mission. This information is all delivered within a minute or so of cutscenes. It speaks again to how dense the cutscenes are in Halo 2, especially with the Covenant. So much about their culture and organization comes through, while also forwarding the plot and the political machinations of the Prophets. The Arbiter is given a new mission, one aided by an information 343 Guilty Spark provided. He is to go after the key which can activate Halo, the sacred icon. This swiftly raises the narrative tension through dramatic irony. We as the audience know that the humans are after the very same object, which they call the Index. The Arbiter is on a collision course with humanity, and we as the audience wait with bated breath for its resolution. The Arbiter embarks on his mission. He treks through Forerunner facilities, taking down Sentinels, the Flood, and whoever else tries to stand in his way. Along the way, he sees humans after his same objective. The tension builds. We as the audience know a clash is imminent. Miranda Keyes and Sergeant Johnson reach the library first, and they acquire the key. Quickly, though, they are met by the Arbiter. Our collision is here. This is a difficult engagement for us to watch, as we've bought into all the characters involved. We don't want the Arbiter to die, and neither do we want Keyes or Johnson to fall. The Arbiter emerges victorious, aided by the timely arrival of Tartarus. Things quickly go south for the Arbiter, however. Tartarus snatches the sacred icon, and he declares his intention to put down the elites. The Arbiter thinks he's acting as a rogue agent, but he learns the devastating truth. The very prophets themselves ordered this. Tartarus blasts the Arbiter, and he plunges into the abyss. Here, we hit the narrative low point of the game. Both of our heroes are laid low. The Covenant have the Index, what they need to fire off the ring and cause untold destruction. Chief and the Arbiter are gathered by the Gravemind, the greater intelligence of the Flood.
Now I shall talk, and you shall listen.
The Gravemind and the Chief, although enemies, share a common goal. Neither wants the Halo ring to go off, as it will mean both the death of humanity and the Flood. The Gravemind explains the true nature of the Great Journey to the Arbiter, but the Arbiter doesn't believe him. Yet after the treachery of the Brutes and what he heard from the Heretic, the Arbiter is no longer fully sure. The Gravemind sees this wavering, and he still decides to use the Arbiter for his purposes. He sends Chief to search one likely spot for the Index, while the Arbiter searches another. This coalescence, I think, highlights how well Halo 2's narrative arcs are threaded. The Flood, the Arbiter, and the Chief are enemies, with very different goals. However, their purposes very naturally aligned for them to help one another, without this alliance feeling contrived or forced. On the Arbiter's side, his questioning of the Covenant comes across as very natural. You see his gradual progression from devoted follower to skeptic, one prompted by the betrayal of his kind. Even now, he is not fully convinced, just unsure. The Chief is sent to High Charity. His first order of business is to terrify a grunt as Seer's weapon.
Boo.
This is a good time to mention that I think Chief's character is handled really well in this game. He's given a bit more personality than Halo Combat Evolved, but it isn't overdone. He's still a mostly silent warrior that the player can inhabit easily. However, his humor and tendency towards straightforward action stands out just a little bit more. Chief rescues some Marines and makes his way through High Charity. This level is long, maybe a bit too long, but the length of the level communicates the massive scope of High Charity. The fact that the Covenant have such a massive city within one of their aircraft speaks to their technological capabilities. The Prophets formally displace the elites as the Covenant's military leaders, replacing them with the Brutes. The betrayal is now complete, and a civil war breaks out between the elites and the Brutes. Gameplay is used to great effect to demonstrate this conflict. When Chief travels through High Charity, he witnesses the elites and Brutes fighting one another. Sometimes he doesn't even have to step into battle himself. He can merely watch the two factions go at it and clean up the scraps afterwards.
You might consider sitting this one out.
It's a great synergy between the story and gameplay. The Flood attack, and they take down one of the prophets, Mercy. Truth, instead of helping him, leaves him to die. It's another showcase of just how ruthless the prophets are, and highlights the lack of unity between them, despite their shared religious goals. Meanwhile, the Arbiter is on his own hunt. He battles Covenant troops, reinforcing his changing alliances via gameplay. It's an odd feeling, being an elite and fighting official members of the Covenant, not just heretics. The Arbiter meets with the Spec Ops commander and fills him in on the betrayal.
Fire, disloyal beasts. The prophets were fools to trust them.
Chief reaches the Prophet of Mercy, who's getting munched on by a flood spore. Mercy tells him that the Prophet of Truth is leading a force back to Earth with the intent of destroying it. However, there's still the ring and Tartarus to worry about. Cortana suggests the tried and true method used on the first Halo ring, blowing up the UNSC ship if Tartarus activates the ring, thereby destroying it.
It's not a very original plan, but we know it'll work.
Cortana has to stay behind, though, to activate the ring manually. She doesn't want to risk a remote detonation. Chief agrees to the plan, and he heads off to stop Truth. He faces hordes of Flood and Covenant, who fight amongst themselves as well. There's a chaos to the gameplay, which reflects the increasing narrative tension as well. The Chief boards the Dreadnought via the transport beam, ending our journey in Halo 2 with him.
Chief, when you get to Earth, good luck.
After I'm through with Truth.
Don't make a girl a promise if you know you can't keep it.
The Arbiter gazes upon the control room with the elite commander. The Gravemind's words run through his mind.
There is still time to stop the key from turning. I must get inside. Then mount up, Arbiter. I know a way to break those doors.
He decides to stop Tartarus from activating the ring. He asks for the commander's help in getting inside, and without hesitation, the commander helps him. It shows how, despite the Arbiter's beginnings, he has won some measure of respect back. The subtlety of character change like this really lends to the characters feeling believable. He battles to the control room, where he finds Tartarus attempting to force keys to activate the ring. The Arbiter confronts Tartarus about the truth of the ring and the Great Journey, but Tartarus refuses to listen.
Take care, Arbiter. What you say is heresy. Is it? Oracle, what is Halo's purpose?
Collectively, the seven.
Not another word.
This is very reflective of the Arbiter's discussion with the heretic, but he is now in the position of the heretic. It's a good demonstration of his character arc by bringing it full circle. The Arbiter battles against Tartarus. From a gameplay perspective, this final battle isn't exactly amazing, but there's one story connection I'd like to point out. In order to damage Tartarus, the Arbiter has to wait for his shields to be struck down by Johnson. Johnson lies outside of the arena with a beam rifle. So the Arbiter has to work together with Johnson to take down Tartarus, which binds the narrative team up with a gameplay mechanic, binding the player closer to the narrative purpose. It's another good use of gameplay synergy. Once Tartarus is down, Miranda Key snags the index, shutting down Halo and preventing activation. They quickly learn from the monitor that there are more Halos, and that they've all been primed for remote activation. They can be activated from somewhere called the Ark.
And where, Oracle, is that?
Meanwhile, Master Chief emerges near Earth's orbit along with the Dreadnought. He contacts Lord Hood and tells him he's going to finish the fight. Finally, we see Cortana, still in the flood-infected High Charity. Gravemind approaches, wanting answers. She tells him to ask away. And so, Halo 2 ends on a cliffhanger. Well, multiple cliffhangers. There are Halo rings abound, Truth is bearing down on Earth, and Cortana is in the Gravemind's clutches. The only arc that sees a real conclusion is the Arbiter's character arc, along with Tartarus' threat as a villain. When Halo 2 released, this abrupt ending was a huge controversy, and it's easy to see why. There are a lot of risks when ending a game on such blatant cliffhangers. First, if a third entry is never greenlit, the series is left in perpetuity with an unsatisfying ending. That's the biggest and maybe the most damaging risk. The second risk is that it makes Halo 2 highly contingent on the subsequent installment. if Halo 3 releases a bad egg, and all those narrative arcs resolved unsatisfyingly, it would in turn reflect on Halo 2 poorly. Fortunately nowadays, we have the advantage of seeing this game with a broader lens. We know Halo 3 did in fact come out, and it was received largely favorably, but I'm not going to go into Halo 3 in this video. But safe to say, I think Halo 2 holds up better for it. With Halo 3 able to be played readily after completing 2, an intermittent chapter in the saga feels fine. So I have no qualms about this cliffhanger ending now. Halo 2 in general is an interesting story to talk about. When examined from a 10,000 foot view, it retreads a lot of the same ground as Halo 1. We're in a chase with the Covenant, battling over control of a similar Halo ring. We're after the same index and the same control room. Cortana even offers the same solution at the end of the game. You'd think this sets Halo 2 up for being derivative. What's interesting though is that Halo 2 doesn't come across as feeling derivative at all. It feels like an authentic evolution of Halo 1 storytelling, a building upon the foundation Halo Combat Evolved laid. The reason lies in the details. Halo 2 has a acute focus on world building, and it uses every opportunity to build upon this world. The cutscenes are densely packed, delivering mounds and mounds of interesting exposition in ways that feel natural, while also furthering the plot. The characters are given more attention, especially on the Covenant side of things. The Arbiter is a compelling character who undergoes a character arc that feels natural. Gameplay through environmental design and combat encounters accentuate the story, enhancing the world building in a very tactile way. The resiliency of the humans, exemplified by Keyes, Johnson, and Chief, make them easy to root for. In fewer words, Halo 2 synergizes all of its elements into storytelling, and it's why Halo 2 stands tall amongst the rest of the series. All that awaits now is to see how this story ends. There was never more riding on the conclusion of a game than Halo 3. Halo Combat Evolved modernized first-person shooters on console, causing an entire generation of players to fall in love with its world and lore. Halo 2 evolved the storytelling of the franchise. It established complex characters like the Arbiter and refined the Covenant into compelling antagonists. However, Halo 2 also ended the series on an infamous cliffhanger. It's a brilliantly told story, but one that felt abrupt in its conclusion. Halo 3 needed to finish the story that Halo 2 started. If Halo 3 failed to deliver, it would not only make Halo 3 an unsatisfying game, but it would retroactively make Halo 2 a worse game. In a story, the journey matters more than the destination. Yet at the same time, the destination does matter. Think of Halo 2 as a nicely paved road. Halo 3 determined if that road led to a gold mine or a barren wasteland. Even if the road is paved with gold, knowing where it leads definitely impacts what you think about it. All of that said, Halo 3 had a great burden on its shoulders, perhaps in some ways an impossible one. Yet, Master Chief is known for nothing if not achieving the impossible. So I'm going to take a look back on the story of Halo 3 and see if it ended the series on the high note it deserved. I'm interested in more than just script writing. I think gameplay, set pieces, and environmental storytelling are incredibly important parts of how games tell their stories and how the player experiences them. So I'll be taking all these elements into account. If it's not obvious, there will be spoilers for all 3 of the original Halo games, so here's your warning. Let's journey into the howling dark once more. In light of how massive Halo 2's cliffhanger was, Halo 3 starts off slowly. We're greeted with the starry night sky and with Cortana's gentle narration. Cortana reflects on why she chose Master Chief, out of all the Spartans she could have chosen to work with.
I did my research, watched as you became the soldier we needed you to be. Like the others, you were strong and swift and brave. A natural leader. But you had something they didn't. Something no one saw but me. Can you guess? Luck.
This opening dialogue really works for me. The luck line shows Cortana's wry, clever sense of humor. It subverts your expectations. You expect her to say some personality trait of Chief instead of just luck. This line speaks to the greater human Covenant war. Throughout the series, we witness the deaths of not only the big characters like Captain Keyes, but also the countless soldiers that have joined Chief in battle but failed to make it to the other side. Despite all of his skills, Chief could easily be another soldier in the ground from a stray grenade, bullet, or whatever else. This line highlights the chaos inherent in war. There's a great fiery ball in the air. A smaller object splits off of it and plummets to the earth in a fiery haze. This is our hero, Master Chief, arriving back on Earth with quite the bang. Morning comes. Johnson and his soldiers stand over the unconscious Chief. His condition doesn't look good. Right when they think he's lost, Chief rallies. Chief, indeed, could have landed on something harder than dirt. He was one unlucky boulder away from getting crushed on impact. Cortana's words ring true. Chief's luck saved him once more. Johnson asks where Cortana is. Chief remembers her last words to him. Don't make a girl a promise that you can't keep. There's a lot of good subtext here. We understand Chief's motivations and desires in not a lot of time. He wants to rescue Cortana and keep his word. When staring at the drive, Chief is entirely absorbed by it, even with Johnson's goofy expression entering his view. You can tell that this mission is personal to him, more than his stoic and gruff demeanor would otherwise indicate. Cortana means a lot to him. Chief detects an elite skulking in the shadows. He charges and puts his pistol right into the Arbiter's mandible. Despite the changing alliances, these two still don't have much fondness for each other. Nonetheless, the Arbiter and the Chief are both mission-first sorts of guys. They put aside any personal feelings and proceed. With that, the gameplay of Halo 3 begins. Chief makes his way through the jungle with the Arbiter and Johnson's men. It's not long before they run into Covenant troops and have to fight their way forward. In a lot of ways, this introduction mission feels familiar. You're taking down small packs of Covenant with a classic band of Marines at your side. However, in a lot of ways it feels different. First off, the elites in the Covenant's ranks are replaced by brutes. They're not as agile as the elites, but they're tankier with wider frames and an array of explosive weaponry. The mission showcases not only the gameplay differences between the elites and brutes, but also their personality differences. We see the brutes brutalizing human soldiers in a way that the elites just wouldn't. The elites had a hatred and disdain for humans, but there is also a refined quality to them. They were religious zealots on a holy mission, and they saw honor and duty in their role. The brutes are, as the name suggests, brutish. Although they are also zealots, they prize strength and dominance. Body language is used to great effect to communicate this. The Arbiter being at your side also gives Halo 3 a distinct flavor. During gameplay, he's immune to death, unlike most of your Marine allies. Aside from obvious narrative reasons of why he can't die during gameplay, it has the effect of making him feel more capable in combat than your other allies. An elite soldier, as it were. In that way, the gameplay nicely highlights the Arbiter's capabilities. You feel the lack of Cortana in this mission. In the prior two games, she's often talking into your ears as you're traversing levels. This absence puts you in Chief's shoes. You miss Cortana as he does. We do get some appearances of Cortana, namely in the sporadic telepathic communications with Chief, where his movement speed slows and his vision dims.
Could you sacrifice me to complete your mission? Could you watch me die?
She asks him if he'd be able to sacrifice her for his mission. This underscores what I was talking about earlier. Cortana is Chief's closest friend. Rescuing her is more than just an operation for him. This first mission also breaks the series tradition of starting Chief on a human ship. The change in initial setting does a lot to make Halo 3 feel different. All in all, Halo 3's first level finds a balance between feeling like a familiar classic Halo, while also communicating the narrative changes from the prior game. Johnson splits his forces, with Chief and Arbiter heading one way, while he leads his men in the other. This doesn't go so well, and Johnson is captured. Here, we see some more great storytelling via body language. A brute chieftain multiple times Johnson's size tries throwing him into a cell, and Johnson defiantly fights back even though it is futile. We see Johnson's stubbornness and feistiness in full display. Chief and Arbiter go to spring him. Here we see again how enemy design is used as a storytelling mechanism to characterize the brutes. The brute chieftain is heavily armored and wields a giant gravity hammer. He lurks in the back of the pack, however, and doesn't attack. Instead, he watches his underlings battle. Only once they are defeated, or if he is provoked earlier by Chief, does he charge into the fray to fight him in 1 versus 1 combat. It shows the warrior king of the hill mentality that the brutes have. Chief busts Johnson out and they evac to reconvene with the United Nations Space Corps, the UNSC, in an underground base. Soldiers watch Master Chief's arrival in awe. It shows how Chief not only brings operational success to humanity but also hope. The Marines are all injured, highlighting the toll this war is taking and just how grueling it's been. Chief meets with Commander Keyes, who gives a nice rundown of the situation. Truth decided to land in the ruins of New Mombasa. He believes that this is where the Ark is located. If he finds it, he can detonate all of the Halo rings, destroying all life in the galaxy and igniting the Covenant's great journey. Lord Hood hops onto a call with them, and they discuss humanity's plan to stop Truth. They only have a few ships remaining, so they have to be precise. They need to punch a hole in Truth's defenses and go for the jugular. The call cuts out, and the entire room goes dark. Truth himself infiltrates their comms and broadcasts a message to humanity.
The culmination of our journey, for your destruction, is the will of the gods. And I am their instrument.
Cocky bastard just loves to run his mouth.
Truth's line is pretty dang cool, I have to say. And Johnson follows it up with his trademark snark. Unfortunately, these good lines are followed by one of the worst lines in the entire trilogy.
Wounded. We're getting all of them out.
I have to carry him myself.
Ma'am, squad leaders are requesting a rally point. Where should they go?
To war.
Key's line here is just nonsensical. The officer is asking a very important question. A Covenant attack is imminent, and his men need to know a rally point. Key's line is not only corny, but it's completely counterproductive. The answer to war doesn't help anybody, and by delaying a real answer when an attack is inbound, she's putting her men's lives at risk. It completely undercuts the tension, because it seems like even Keyes isn't taking the situation seriously. But it gets even worse. Keyes is walking up the stairs, and she cocks her gun dramatically. When the cutscene ends, she pivots and heads back down the stairs unceremoniously. What is even going on? This feels like some glitch in the Matrix. It's not that big of a deal. It's one of those things where you roll your eyes and carry on with your day. However, it speaks to a somewhat looseness with the characters and story that I'll highlight as the video continues on. With a Covenant attack imminent, Chief is tasked with defending the base. This mission does a great job of furthering your bond with the Marines. Your Marine allies have a lot of personality, with many humorous moments that go pretty far to humanize them.
Hey, open up!
Password, please!
You gotta be kidding me! What password?
The password so we don't open the door for brutes.
Do I sound like a brute to you?
Well, you could be held prisoner by brutes.
If I was held prisoner by brutes and knew the password, then the brutes could just force me to tell you the password and you'd open the door for them.
Okay, well now I'm definitely not gonna open the door.
But we need ammo!
Well, why don't you go ask your brute buddies then?
The levity contrasts starkly with the peril of the situation. Humanity has been decimated and enemies are at their door. The effects of this conflict are seen throughout the level. Injured and dead Marines litter the hallways, making you always aware of the losses that have been inflicted. And yet the Marines still have a gung-ho attitude and no shortage of grit. It's this positivity in light of darkness that makes the Marines easy to root for. You resonate with their resoluteness and persistence. Your ability to attach to the Marines increases your investment in the greater war, and therefore the greater story. I think Halo 3's ability to instill a sense of camaraderie is one of its greatest storytelling strengths, and we'll see more of it throughout the game. The Arbiter also gets some more characterization. He pleads with his enemies to rebel against the Prophets, as he's doing. There's a desperation and a frustration in his voice.
Reject their lies! Rebel! Or all your hides will perish!
It makes you stop and think about how difficult this must be for him. He's gone from being a zealot to fighting against the very structure and people he once held dear. This isn't overstated, which I actually think makes it work better. It feels genuine. There are a handful more Cortana moments throughout this level. They're short and allude to Chief's past. None of these moments come across as all that effective to me. The fact that they slow down your movement is irritating. I ended up feeling slightly annoyed towards Cortana because of them, which I think is the opposite of what is intended. Commander Keyes decides that the base can't be held, so she orders a bomb placed in the ops center. The Covenant get there, however, and deactivate the bomb. Keyes orders Chief to rearm the bomb. Once he does so, he has to get out of the base before detonation. He's not the only one, however. He follows a horde of Covenant as they panic and scramble out of the base. It's another case of using the sandbox and enemy behavior as a storytelling mechanism. The Covenant here have a clear sense of self-preservation. It makes them feel like actual sentient beings rather than just avatars of destruction. The willingness of Halo 3 to display its factions in multiple lights is one of its great strengths. We see the Marines with their despair and also hope. We see the Covenant as an existential threat, yet also a force made up of individuals just like the humans. It all serves to immerse the player in this world. Chief makes it to an elevator shaft, but the detonation sends it into freefall. He crashes into a garage where he regroups with some Marines. He leads the Marines onto the Salvo Highway, where they fight through more Covenant forces. This level is definitely focused on action, and I don't feel like there's as much to say about the story. However, there are still a few things I want to point out. Salvo Highway delivers a greater sense of scale than what we've seen in the prior two levels. The vehicular combat and heavy Covenant outposts deliver the sense of warfare and open conflict, and this building a scale matches the rising narrative, and this scale continues to grow. Master Chief faces down this greater battle once more with his Marines, furthering your bond with them. There are also small storytelling flourishes. We get more truth dialogue via holograms placed at enemy encampments. We've seen these holograms in prior games. The fact that the Covenant has their very prophets on broadcast at their bases speaks to their fierce devotion. In addition, I like to think it points to the prophets' insecurity as well, where they have to be whispering in their followers' ears at all times. Once Chief and his Marines fight across the highway, the next level begins, the Storm. This is one of my favorite levels in the series. We've been witnessing a building scale in the battles, from small squad fighting to vehicular fighting. And at the same time, there's been a steady focus on camaraderie. Both of these culminate in the Storm. This level is the great push in the mission, as they battle through the Covenant defenses, to take down their air defenses and give Lord Hood's air forces an opportunity to strike at truth. This level is just epic, with Chief storming ahead with his fellow Marines at his side. The sky is flooded with Covenant Banshees, and an ominous cloud formation hangs overhead, with its center over Truth's artifact. A constant reminder of what's at stake if he succeeds. The stakes are not only visual and cinematic. This epicness translates to gameplay, with Chief having to engage in combined arms warfare against infantry and armor. This all climaxes in a battle with a Scarab, a massive Covenant weapon. Unlike this enemy's appearance in Halo 2, the Halo 3 version isn't heavily scripted. The Scarab is a fully fledged enemy with its own artificial intelligence. Chief has to find a way to topple the behemoth, and there are multiple ways he can go about it. He can ride an elevator and drop down under the Scarab from above, taking a risky jump for a potentially faster takedown. Alternatively, he can stay far away from the Scarab, firing mortar blast at it until the Scarab is grounded. He can take a Warthog or another vehicle and attack from under its legs too. There are probably even more methods I haven't thought of. The moral of the story is the Scarab fight is incredibly dynamic. You feel like you truly took down this opponent using your own ingenuity and skill rather than the game just handing you a win. You earn this moment, and it makes the fight feel both incredibly memorable and cinematic. Once the Scarab goes down, Chief continues fighting with the Marines and the Arbiter, ultimately accomplishing their mission and taking down the Covenant's anti-air defenses. Lord Hood's ships attack, but they ultimately fail to stop Truth, and he manages to activate the artifact. It doesn't set off the rings though. Instead, it opens a giant portal orb, which Truth and the Covenant fly through. Things get worse. Another ship arrives, but it's not carrying more Covenant troops. At least not living ones. The Flood, the devastating, unrelenting alien infection, has crash landed on Earth. With that, the mission is complete. This puts us close to halfway through Halo 3's story. Up to this point, Halo 3's method of storytelling has differed greatly from Halo 2. I would call Halo 3's storytelling through these first handful of missions very objective focused. This story is largely driven by the tasks that Chief has to complete, whether it be saving Johnson, defending the base, or taking down Covenant anti-air. Although there is some character and world building, which I pointed out throughout the video, there's less of a focus on them than in Halo 2. Halo 2 in contrast had a great degree of focus on characters. This is more heavily weighted on the Covenant side, but nonetheless, there's a focus on fleshing out the Arbiter as a character, and even Truth to a certain extent. World building too was a large focus. as we learned a ton about the Covenant's inner workings. Even in the human sections, we were seeing Earth for the first time, which did a lot to help us picture human society in this universe. You could argue that the opening levels of Halo Combat Evolved had a similarly mission-driven plot, with Chief tasked with escaping the Pillar of Autumn or rescuing Marines. However, I think CE's story had an overarching sense of discovery and mystery that powered the plot past just these objectives. In Halo 3, we don't really get any new insights about any of the characters, old or new. Likewise, we don't learn much about the world. We're back on Earth, a place that we've already been. There just isn't quite that sense of mystery or discovery. Despite the absence of the character or world building, I think Halo 3's narrative is still engaging for two reasons. First, I think Halo 3 does an excellent job of building your camaraderie with the Marines, which makes you feel more invested in each battle, and the overall war, which I've been talking about. The second reason though is that Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2 already laid the groundwork. The world was so captivating in the prior games that it continues to be captivating in the third installment, even if Halo 3 isn't doing a whole lot of work to make it so. Same goes for the characters. We've already built an investment into characters like the Arbiter, Johnson, Chief, and Cortana, and that naturally carries on to the third game. But still, even if Halo 3 is engaging, I can't shake the feeling that it feels, at least a little bit, like Halo 3 is coasting off the momentum built up by its predecessors, and that makes it ring just a bit hollow at times. However, the Return of the Flood marks a turning point in the game. There's a lot more focus on the narrative from here on out, so let's see what Halo 3 does with its characters. Halo 3's next level, Floodgate, sets a dark and foreboding mood. The sky's ashen and sickly looking, as if the very clouds were infected by the flood. Chief's mission is to stop the flood from spreading by reaching the crashed flood ship and overloading its engine. They need to destroy the entire city or risk the flood taking the entire planet, in the same way a surgeon might need to amputate an arm to save the body. Chief pushes deeper into the facility on his way to the engine. There's a building sense of tension and dread as Chief overhears Marines in distress and hears the guttural roar of flood forms. Halo 3 makes the wise choice of not overplaying this tension. The tension is just enough to make the player dread the flood's appearance, especially if they played the prior two games. However, seeing that this is the flood's third appearance, any longer stretching attention would feel overly protracted. What follows is a grueling battle through the facility, as Chief pushes against the seemingly endless horde. Along the way, he passes scores of Marine bodies, along with Marines traumatized from the whole ordeal.
I can see it crawling, sliding around beneath their skin. Oh.
Arbiter and Chief meet up with a squad of elites, only to learn that the elites aren't exactly having a great time either. High Charity, the Covenant city, has been reduced to a flood wasteland, and the elite's fleet of hundreds has been nearly annihilated from the infection. Not good. The elites join Chief and Arbiter in the advance to the flood ship. This is one of the coolest moments in the series to me. The elites have been an absolute menace to Chief, and by extension the player, during an entire time in the Halo series, being the most prominent and toughest of the general Covenant army. Getting to fight alongside them now is cathartic to say the least, and it is a good gameplay reflection of just how far the story has come since the days of Combat Evolved. This level is a great counter to the flat, mission-focused storytelling I've been talking about. Floodgate has a very clear objective for Chief as well, but the heavy emphasis on atmosphere makes that goal resonate with me more. Chief wants to detonate the engine, but I do personally as well to get rid of the flood and end this nightmare. As Chief enters the ship, Gravemind interrupts with grand abstract language, slowing your movement and dimming your vision. There are more of these moments throughout the game. When you pair them with the similar Cortana moments, that makes for a heck of a lot of interruptions throughout the game. Their overuse really takes you out of the game, and as it progresses, it becomes harder and harder to not just tune them out and wait for them to end, especially since Cortana and Gravemind are so vague when they speak. Chief finds Cortana and she's in rough shape. Then a familiar face arrives on the scene. It's 343 Guilty Spark, the Monitor who's been a thorn in Chief and pretty much everyone's side. His primary goal was to stop the flood infestation, even if it meant killing sentient life. However, he now tells Chief that the destruction of the ring gives him no function except one, to help the Reclaimer, Chief.
On Halo, you tried to kill Cortana. You tried to kill me.
Protocol dictated my response. She had the activation index, and you were going to destroy my installation. You did destroy my installation. Now I have only one function, to help you, Reclaimer, as I always should have done.
The "as I always should have done" line hits at a certain level of regret. 343 seems genuine. That's all well and good, but I don't trust this guy as far as I can throw him. He has a nasty habit of betraying people. Chief reluctantly accepts his help, despite his past. He doesn't give an explicit reason why, but it's implied it's because 343 wants to help Cortana. Chief lets his guard down when it comes to saving her, ever so slightly, and he's very protective of her. They ascend to an elite carrier. Aboard, they meet the Arbiter, the elite shipmaster, and humanity's leadership. 343 manages to revive Cortana, only to discover that it's not really Cortana. This is just a message that she left for him. Cortana reveals that, on the other side of the portal Truth wormed through, there's a means to stop the flood without detonating the Halo rings. That's great, but they can't get any more info from her. She succumbs to pain and the message ends. The humans and elites deliberate what to do. Despite humans and elites now being allies, we see the distrust between them after years of conflict.
And you, shipmaster, just glassed half a continent. Maybe the flood isn't all I should be worried about.
One single flood spore can destroy a species. Were it not for the Arbiter's counsel, I would have glassed your entire planet.
Sir, with respect.
It's not just distrust either. There's a clear disdain in the elite shipmaster's voice, and he talks down to the humans. His contempt for the species has not gone away, which feels very realistic. Another detail is that this shipmaster is actually the same Spec Ops commander from Halo 2. It's not expressly pointed out, but you can tell by the distinct wounded mandibles on his face. That itself tells a story. The commander has risen through the ranks fast in light of the elite losses in the war, as well as his demonstrated leadership in the prior game. Lord Hood too has an attitude of distrust. He questions the elite shipmaster's glassing of half a continent to contain the flood, and questions his intentions. Commander Keyes reminds them of the portal and Cortana's message. Lord Hood points out that because Cortana is damaged, the intel may be compromised as well. He would prefer to remain on Earth and take their chances with a final stand. He asks if Chief trusts Cortana enough. Chief gives his fastest response in the game.
Earth is all we have left. You trust Cortana that much?
Sir. Yes, sir.
There's also a lot of passion in his voice, far more than Chief normally has. This scene is great, and it's working on multiple levels at once. The plot advances, as Lord Hood agrees to head through the portal to look for Cortana's solution. Yet at the same time, there's world building here. We're learning more of the relationship between the elites and humans post-conflict, and their attitudes towards each other. We also have subtle characterization of Chief Hood and the Commander. This ability to operate on multiple levels makes this cutscene very engaging, and when you rewatch it, you can pick up on new things. It's very reminiscent of Halo 2 and how it delivered cutscenes. The UNSC and Elite Fleet go through the portal and arrive on a massive Forerunner installation that mostly consists of desert. Chief sets out with some ODST soldiers to find Cortana's solution. We're treated to one of the most breathtaking skyboxes in the game as we see the Milky Way. It inspires a sense of awe and mystery, much like Halo Combat Evolved. Chief and the UNSC continue on, and this is another camaraderie building level. You fight with fellow troopers in infantry and vehicular combat. The UNSC soldiers, as always, are brimming with personality.
Tank beats Ghost! Tank beats Hunter! Tank beats everything!
This, for me, culminated when Chief had to navigate through an open battlefield, filled with enemy vehicles, which ends in another Scarab battle. It was me as Chief and a Warthog with one Marine who manned a Gauss cannon. As I drove, this loyal Marine would reliably take down Covenant vehicles and troops who got in our way. And yet, despite his steadfast service, there were so many enemy vehicles that I died a lot, more than anywhere else in the game. And each time I respawned, this loyal Marine spawned at my side, and we took on the challenge again and again. He would shout at the Covenant and give me heads up. Eventually, we managed to take the Scarab down to its knees, and I had to leave the Warthog to destroy the Scarab for good. I noticed that the Marine's getting shot, but he remains loyally in position, firing on enemies. Once the Scarab blows up, my first thought, I kid you not, was realizing that my Marine had still been nearby. The first thing I did was try to find the Warthog. I discover it, but there's no Marine in sight. I turn and I find the Marine's body against the wall. He had been blasted out of the gunner seat and killed. And I actually felt bummed about this. This guy and I had been through the ringer during this level, and I wanted him to make it on the other side with me. It's not many games that make you care about a random soldier, which the developers aren't particularly trying to make you care about. It's a testament to the dynamic storytelling of Halo 3 Sandbox, and how that dynamic storytelling deepens your connection with your allies and intensifies your disdain for the enemy. Chief continues on, along with the surviving UNSC soldiers and the Arbiter. They reach the cartographer, and Guilty Spark investigates further. Guilty Spark discovers that this installation is, in fact, the very arc that Truth had been searching for. Truth has triggered a defensive barrier around the arc's core. Chief and the Arbiter need to stop him, but before they can, more Covenant arrive on the scene. There's a cool segment here where a Brute Chieftain waits in the center of a ring with Brutes surrounding him. The outer Brutes will let you fight 1v1 with the Brute Chieftain, only stepping in if you attack them, or when the Chieftain is defeated. It's a really cool way of using gameplay to further characterize the Brutes, and you get a sense for the importance of hierarchy and physical dominance in their ranks. Chief and company are ready to set out, but they witness a swarm of sentinels moving. 343 wants to investigate further, but Commander Keyes decides it can wait. They need to stop Truth. Before that, nothing else matters. As the next level, the Covenant, begins, Chief storms a beach along with ODST soldiers. It's very reminiscent of the Halo CE mission, The Silent Cartographer, and it gives you this full circle feeling. It feels right, once again storming the beaches with your comrades. There's a heavy focus on combat as Chief fights his way up towers and disables them. At the top of each, a Brute Chieftain awaits, who will once more wait until Chief beats his underlings before going on the offensive. Unfortunately, things go a bit south. Johnson's assault on the third tower failed, and he was taken prisoner. Johnson needs to be saved, but first, Chief has to deactivate the final tower to lower the barrier. Stopping Truth, after all, has to be their #1 priority. Chief succeeds in his mission, but any jubilation is quickly undercut by the Flood-infected High Charity's arrival. This mirrors the Flood's arrival in the storm, which also undercut Chief's successive disabling AA cannons. The guy can't just get a clean win, can he? The Flood don't stop the Chief, the Elites, or the UNSC from continuing their offensive. This culminates in a fight against not one, but 2 Scarabs. It's easily the highest scale battle in the series up until this point. There's so many ways to take down the 2 Scarabs, and it's another great example of the story-generating design of Halo 3 Sandbox. Once the Scarabs are down, the Chief and Arbiter head into the Citadel, where Truth is planning on firing the rings. He is trying to force Johnson to activate it. Why does he need Johnson to do it? Well, we'll get to that later. Chief and the Arbiter aren't going to reach Truth in time. Then, Commander Miranda Keyes crashes into the Citadel via a Pelican. She does her best to stop Truth, but she ultimately dies in the attempt. Another one of our allies, one in a long line, has fallen. Unfortunately, this scene just doesn't work for me, and it's a shame because I really like Miranda Keyes. Less so in Halo 3 than 2, but still. The fact that this scene made me feel apathy, I think, is due to how the scene is handled rather than her as a character. I mean, I felt bad earlier for a random Marine. So why does this scene not land? Well, it's because Miranda's actions come across as pretty brain dead here. She decides to bolt in by herself against a bunch of brutes, and well, that goes exactly how you would expect. Chief and the Arbiter were literally in the same building. Why didn't she at least pick them up along the way? I know they didn't have much time, but it's hard for me to imagine that she couldn't have figured out a way to Uber them up without losing much time. Maybe you really can argue that she just had no time to do anything different. But I don't know. It just feels very contrived to have allies literally in the same building, and her in a ship, but having to end up fighting alone. And the way she just stands around firing her shotgun, it just feels so bereft of the desperation the situation calls for. If this situation is so unwinnable, why doesn't she kill Johnson and herself so the Covenant can't use them? Maybe I'm wrong on this one, but I'm pretty sure they need a live human to activate the Ark. Otherwise, Truth could have just killed Johnson already, or he could have just picked up a random dead human soldier. I guess all in all, Keyes has always been presented as a smart, tactical woman. Even if all these events line up logically, it still feels like she could have figured out a better plan than this. When she dies, you're left wondering why she acted like this, and it completely takes you out of mourning her death, which is what you should be focused on. The worst part is she ultimately fails. Johnson is still in Truth's clutches, so it feels pointless. Chief and Arbiter have to stop Truth. They're aided by the Gravemind, whose objective is, for now, aligned with theirs. After all, the true purpose of the Halo rings is to stop him. This feels like a reunion from the second game, where the trio also worked together to stop a ring's detonation. There's an awesome gameplay segment where you fight with the Flood. The Covenant react in absolute terror as you and a gang of parasite monsters push forward. Just like when you teamed up with the elites, this is a cathartic feeling. They reach Truth, and the Arbiter gets an awesome final scene with him, where he delivers an absolute winner line.
I am Truth, the voice of the Covenant! So, you must be silenced.
The Arbiter's scream too is telling. Even though Truth needed to face justice, the Arbiter had such fervent faith in the Prophets once. This serves as his final severance from the Covenant, and the separation from something he once held dear is still painful. With Truth's death, I want to reflect a bit on his character. In Halo 3, his goals are to destroy humanity and activate the Halo rings, but there really isn't much more to him than that. I think he's a lot less complex and a lot less interesting than in his Halo 2 days, where he felt a lot more calculated and subtle in his approach. This is because he also had the other prophets as equals, so he had to appease them while subtly machinating against them. The lack of these same-side rivals means that in Halo 3, he doesn't really have anyone interesting to bounce off of and showcase his character. He comes across as more of a standard blank evil villain here. Arbiter has some great character moments in Halo 3, the best of them being this scene in my opinion. However, with how big of a role he played in Halo 2, I wish he had gotten more time to shine in this game. He definitely feels like he's been put in the back seat when he was a protagonist in the last game. I'm not necessarily saying he should have been a protagonist in 3 as well, but I still think there is more meat on the bone to explore with him, which feels left on the table. With the Covenant defeated, the Gravemind no longer has a shared goal with Chief or the Arbiter, so he abruptly turns against them. Chief and Arbiter make their desperate escape, jumping down a chute. Upon landing, Chief follows a hologram of Cortana. A new Halo ring is revealed, one that serves as a replacement for the ring Chief destroyed. Chief, Arbiter, and 343 make the connection. This ring is the solution that Cortana had discovered. They can use a tactical pulse to destroy the local Flood infestation while leaving the rest of the galaxy intact. However, he must retrieve the activation index to fire it off. He heads to the Flood-infected High Charity, the ship that Cortana is imprisoned in, and the very same one that brought the Flood to the Ark. In this level, Chief has to fight through the most infested hive of Flood forms. The cramped, narrow corridors, paired with the aggressive enemies, makes this level both intense and claustrophobic. As soon as you start the level, you want to get out of it, which I think is effective storytelling. This is the heart of the Flood. We should want to get out of here. However, Chief also has to endure a significant number of Gravemind and Cortana interruptions. The screen dims, and Chief's movement is slowed to a halt. Unfortunately, these interruptions don't land any better than any time previously in the game, and they're even worse due to their frequency. The Cortana interruptions make me reflect on how I miss Cortana throughout the game. In the prior games, she was always at Chief's side. Their dynamic together in dialogue, mostly one way from Cortana, was something I appreciated. Her absence throughout the game is truly felt. I think it's a shame that we don't reunite with her until the penultimate chapter in the game. I will say though that their reunion is cathartic when it happens. I love the subtle characterization of Chief in this exchange. Around Cortana, he's more verbose than with anyone else, and there's more comfort in his voice. You can really feel that special connection he has with her. Chief and Cortana make their escape. The claustrophobia works to great effect here, and the intensity is ratcheted up. The player desperately wants to get out of this place, as does Chief. Once they've escaped, they head to the ring. He is joined by the Arbiter. Even though the other elites are ready to leave along with the humans, the Arbiter stays with Chief to finish the fight. I'd like to contrast this with the beginning of the game, when Chief stuffed a pistol in Arbiter's face. Now, the two of them are going to end this together. Although this is a big difference, it comes across as very natural and I didn't think twice about it. When it comes to their relationship, the Arbiter and Chief don't get a whole lot of explicit development as far as dialogue or cutscenes go. However, throughout the game you have fought dozens of battles with him at your side. I think it's a testament to how Halo 3's dynamic gameplay storytelling works for the Arbiter too. By fighting through so many battles with him, you get the sense that the Arbiter and Chief now trust each other more, even without that dialogue or cutscenes. They're both men of action, so having their relationship primarily forged through battle feels right. It's a good use of show rather than tell, for lack of a better term. Johnson is headed to the ring too, and he intends on landing near the control room. They land on the ring. Cortana mentions that the ring is so new that she's not sure exactly what will happen when they fire it off. Chief responds very simply.
Halo, it's so new, unfinished. I'm not exactly sure what will happen when we fire it.
We'll head for the portal, and we'll all go home.
There's just a steadiness and sure-footedness to the Master Chief which makes him really appealing. You can see why the Marines are so inspired by him. Chief and Arbiter fight through an intense cluster of flood forms, but they manage to clear an LZ for Johnson. It feels fitting for him to be here. He was one of the first humans to discover the flood at the Halo installation after all, and he deserves to be the one to end it. They head into the control room. 343 Guilty Spark explains that the installation will be ready in a few days. Obviously, that's not a convenient timetable for humanity, so Johnson plans to fire it off anyway. Premature firing of the ring will destroy the Ark, and 343 will not allow that. He blasts Johnson with the laser, wounding him, and then he turns his sights on Chief. In a very predictable manner, he betrays Chief again. Maybe he'll learn to stop trusting someone with the word guilty in his name. Then 343 drops a big reveal.
You are the child of my makers, inheritor of all they left behind. You are Forerunner.
The Forerunners we've heard so much about are actually the ancestors of humans. A lot of the oddities and hints we've seen throughout the series all make sense. Like earlier in the game, when Truth had to use Johnson's hand to activate Forerunner technology. Another example of 343 referring to Chief as Reclaimer. Well, if he's the descendant of Forerunners, it makes sense he's reclaiming what they built. Even the Forerunner architecture, while it looks distinctly alien, also looks more human than what we've seen from the likes of the Covenant. It's a cool confirmation of what many savvy players had put together from all these hints throughout the series. I know that later on, this reveal gets soft retconned by a rewrite of the lore by the next Halo developers, 343 Industries. However, I think the intent in this game is fairly clear. Guilty Spark literally says, "You are Forerunner." I mean, I don't know how much more plainly you can state it than that, so I'm going with the original intention here. Chief takes on 343 Guilty Spark, ultimately defeating him. Johnson is mortally wounded, so this is one adventure he won't get to see the end of. Johnson passes away, telling Chief not to let Cortana go. This death works a lot better than Key's. Johnson's presence makes sense, and his death feels true to the character. Chief activates the ring, so he and Arbiter have to hightail it out before the ring fires. This culminates in a final race across the ring. It's a callback to the conclusion of Halo Combat Evolved. While this ending loses a few points for originality, it ultimately feels like the right gameplay send-off, giving the gameplay a full circle feeling. Chief and Arbiter make it to the hangar. Cortana and Chief share a final moment as the ring detonates. We see Chief's sure-footedness and Cortana's care for him. The screen fades to white. The epilogue follows. Lord Hood holds a ceremony for the fallen soldiers, Chief believed to be amongst them. The back half of the ship had been separated from the explosion. Afterwards, the Arbiter and Lord Hood share a moment. This is the final wrapping up of the human and Sangheili relationship. Two species once at odds now finding peace. It's soft and quiet for how large of a scale the war had been, but it feels right. It feels genuine. The Arbiter heads back to his home world with the other Sangheili. One final scene remains, Chief and Cortana. They are alone in a vast stretch of space with only each other for company. Chief isn't very disturbed by this. he heads to cryosleep, entering the same state that he woke in the first game. Again, this feels very full circle. Chief returning to sleep after doing his duty feels like the perfect capstone to his character. Once that duty is complete, he patiently awaits the next task. Cortana says she'll miss him. It's a final reflection of what they've meant to each other during the battle. Chief tells her to wake him when she needs him. With that, Halo 3 and the Halo trilogy as a whole come to an end. Just like the game, I'll bring the video full circle too. Was Halo 3 a worthy conclusion to the trilogy? Halo 3 had to end the series in a satisfying way, one that successfully wrapped up the plotline set up by the prior games. I think in terms of that goal, Halo 3 succeeds. The conclusion to the Human Covenant War and the Flood threat ends in a very satisfying way. The Arbiter gets his justice against truth, and there's the climactic reveal of humanity's relationship with the Forerunners. There are some odd and inconsistent moments, like with Commander Keyes a few times, but these can mostly be shrugged off and ignored as blips. Halo 2 ended on an abrupt cliffhanger, and as I mentioned earlier, that made it highly dependent on how the third game turned out. Halo 3 makes Halo 2 stand taller, by concluding the series in a satisfying way. At the same time though, I think you can feel that pressure to end the series right, all throughout the game. Halo 2 took a ton of bold storytelling risks, especially with you taking the role of the Arbiter and the game's overall willingness to flesh out and characterize the Covenant. Halo 3 distinctly lacks that same boldness and risk-taking in the storytelling department. The characters are true to themselves, yet at the same time, Halo 3 doesn't go to great lengths to do anything truly interesting or innovative with them. There isn't a sense of growth with any of them really. They're pretty much the same people at the start of the game as at the end. The story is well put together, yet I don't think it evokes quite the same wonder as the first and second game. I guess that's what I mean when I say you can feel the pressure on this game. You can almost feel a sense of fear, of taking too daring a step and ruining everything. Halo 3 is a worthy entry. More than that, it's a worthy ending, doing justice to its predecessors. I think the Halo series' strongest storytelling aspect, the dynamic sandbox, even reigns supreme here. Yet at the same time, a part of me wishes for a Halo 3 that would have dared to be more than just a satisfying conclusion. I find myself wishing for the bold choices in Halo 2, and the clear vision of story you could feel in that game. But with that in mind, I'm well aware that we should be careful for what we wish for. I'm glad we got this Halo 3, and I'm glad we finished the fight. Halo is one of those rare trilogies with 3 stellar games. You can make a pretty compelling argument about any of the 3 games being the best. Halo Combat Evolved has an unparalleled sense of exploration, Halo 2 has the narrative highs, while Halo 3 feels the most overall consistent. In the aggregate, the Halo trilogy offers an engaging experience set in a captivating world, with lore that gets progressively deeper and more interesting. That narrative is bolstered by combat that is not only satisfying and fun, but also incredibly immersive. The gameplay builds an organic bond between you, the player, and the greater war Master Chief Wages. I think that element is the extra spice and the special sauce that makes Halo's story resonate with so many fans. That organic connection makes you want to learn just a little bit more about the world. It's a series that's not only interested in telling a story, but in how that story is told. Halo makes sure to bring you as the player along for the ride. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please consider liking, subscribing, and dropping a comment about your thoughts on the Halo trilogy. If you want to support me further, please consider checking out the Northfield series. Until next time.